Okay, in today's session, we'll discuss what is object-oriented ABAP, and we'll also see few examples of creating programs using object-oriented ABAP. So, what is object-oriented ABAP and how it is different from procedural programming? Whatever the programs we created as of now are based on procedural programming approach. Can you tell me one example for procedural programming languages? Sorry?
C and plus.
So C is one of the example for procedural programming language. We have other called basics, Fortran. These are all procedural programming languages which are based on functions. Okay, procedure calls or function calls. What is object-oriented programming? So object-oriented example for object-oriented programming is C++, right?
Yes, sir.
It uses classes instead of functions. It uses classes and objects. Object-oriented program uses classes and objects, and we have certain advanced features than procedural programming like data security, reusability, and extendability of the standard code, or maybe extendability of the existing code. So here in object-oriented ABAP, we talk more about classes, methods, and objects. Okay, and we'll see one by one.
Yes, sir.
So what is a class? Class is a blueprint for creating an object. But what is object? Object is instance of the class.
Yes.
Object is the instance of the
Instant.
class. So what does a class contains? Class contains attributes. Attributes are very similar to your data objects like variables, work areas, or internal tables. So by using these attributes, the methods inside the class can exchange the data, right? Attributes can store the data in the that might be attribute might be in the form of variable, work area, or internal
Work
table.
area.
You know
Internet.
how variable stores the data and how work area stores the data and how internal table handles the data, right?
Yes, sir.
That might be a constant also. Okay, and
Yes.
what are the other objects that class contains? Class contains attributes, methods. Okay. So I want to make it as simple as possible. I don't want to go in detailed about object-oriented programming and its features and everything. We'll work on it practically. Okay. So object is the instance of the class. So whenever you create the class, it won't have any memory. To call the methods or attributes of the class, what is required? If you want to access attributes
Yeah.
or if you want to execute methods of the class, what is required? Object. You have to
Object.
create object. We are going to create one instance for that class. Okay, to
Yes, sir.
call the class methods
Yes.
or to access the attributes. Okay, so to
Yes,
call the
sir.
class method, what is required?
Object.
Instance. Or
Extension.
how can you create the instance? By creating a object.
Okay, sir.
Can create, we can create multiple objects for the same class. That means we can generate multiple instances for one single class. Each instance contains its own memory. Each instance contains its own memory,
Its own memory.
right? One instance data is not accessible to other instance. Every instance will have its own memory. Okay,
Yes, sir.
but when you take procedural programming, you don't have multiple instances for a function module. Okay, so all the function
Okay.
modules are going to share global data of function group. Okay, common data
Yes,
of the
sir.
function group, but here methods of the class are not is not going to share the global data. Each
Um,
object have its own instance and its own memory. Okay, the other feature, of object oriented ABAP is encapsulation. What is encapsulation means? Hiding details of the class or methods to the outside world. It's like hiding or restricting. So by using encapsulation, you can restrict the access of the data by outside resources or outside classes. For that we use what are the access specifiers?
to use the hided.
Public, protected and private. Okay, so by using these access specifiers, we are going to achieve encapsulation. Encapsulation means hiding details of the class or implementation details of the class to outside world.
Outside role.
Whatever the data objects of that class, we can restrict the access to the outside world for the data security. Okay,
Yes, sir.
How can you achieve encapsulation? Using access specifiers.
Yes, sir.
What are the access specifiers available? Public,
Public,
protected,
protected,
and
private.
private. So when we use public, all the data or objects of that public access specifier will be available to outside world. Okay. Protected,
Yes, sir. Up to certain limited
protected,
person.
protected. When you use protected, only the subclass, only the subclass of that main class will have access to the data. Okay. The main class or the subclass of that class can access protected methods or protected attributes. Other classes cannot access that data. Okay. When you define something as a protected, same class can access or subclass of that original class can access the data.
Data.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What is private?
No one can access
Only within the
the
class.
data.
Only same class can access the data. Other classes cannot access
Oh,
the data. Okay.
okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Also, like private, same class, or we have a concept called friend class. It's friend class. To access the private attributes of the class, we have a concept called friends,
Friend class.
friend class. Okay. That can also access that data. Protected, same, or
So,
subclass. Subclass nothing but child class for the superclass, for the parent class.
okay, sir.
Public,
All classes.
all classes can access. So that's about encapsulation. You have another feature of object-oriented web, that is polymorphism. So what is polymorphism? Polymorphism nothing but using a same object, using a same object or method in different ways in different context. For example, there is an object called save. So the same object we can use for multiple functionalities, but the name of the object is same. So the same object or method is going to behave differently, depends on the situation or depends on the context. So one method or one object will have many forms. Forms nothing but many different implementations in the different context. So what is polymorphism? Different ways. So polymorphism means object or method to behave in different ways depends on the context. In one context, the same method will deliver one functionality. In a different context, the same method will deliver a different functionality. Here, the method name is same, but that functionality is delivering is depend on the different scenarios. So that is
Yes,
what we
sir.
called as polymorphism. So how can you achieve polymorphism in object-oriented ABAP? Using interfaces. Okay, by using interfaces, polymorphism can be achieved. What is an interface? Interface contains methods without implementation. Okay, so interface contains methods without implementation. We'll discuss more about interfaces later. How can you achieve polymorphism? By using interfaces.
Interfaces.
So whatever we are discussing here, these are all interview questions, frequently asked interview questions. Okay, I'm not going to explain all theoretical concepts of object-oriented ABAP. I'm explaining whatever required for you. Okay,
Okay, sir.
then we have a different concept called interfaces in object-oriented ABAP. Along with classes, we have interfaces. So interface contains methods without implementation. To how to implement an interface? To implement an interface, we need to use a class or we
Class.
need to add interface to a class. Okay, clear? So that we
Yes,
can
sir.
create the implementation for that interface method. Class is different, interface is different. Class contains methods with implementation, with functionality, but interfaces contains methods without implementation.
Implementation.
So it only contains some importing and exporting parameters. Interface methods only contains some importing and
Inputting.
changing parameters. So when you are creating an interface or when you check any standard interface, all the parameters should be in public visibility. Methods, sorry. Okay, methods are attributes should be in public visibility.
Public.
Okay. So how to implement an interface or interface method?
Add interface to a
Yeah,
class.
by using a class, we can implement the interface. We cannot implement the interface directly. Okay,
Yes.
that's about interfaces. We have one more important feature of object-oriented ABAP, that is inheritance. Inheritance is nothing but
Class.
okay.
Parent class.
So inheritance is nothing but inheriting or reusing the properties or methods of the parent class
Parent
in subclass or
subclass.
child class. Okay, let's say we have a class with some functionalities, functionality 1, 2, 3. So when you need to reuse the functionality in different class and you want to add few additional requirements or few additional lines of code to the existing functionality, what you can do? You can inherit the functionality of the superclass and you can redefine it to add more functionality along with the existing functionality. So inheritance is mainly for reusing existing functionality. You can also extend the existing functionality in the subclass using, okay. So what is the option we have? We need to redefine to add additional functionality to superclass method in subclass. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So we have few other options like events and exceptions. But
Section.
first we'll create some basics. We'll understand some basics in object-oriented ABAP. Basics are creating classes and methods. Then we'll work on the remaining topics like
Okay.
inheritance, interfaces. Okay. So
Okay, sir.
once the expectation from you guys is once we completed This object-oriented ABAP basics. Every program you should create with the help of object-oriented concepts only. That means with the help of class methods only.
Class methods.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
So previously we created function module, right, for modularization or modularizing the code.
Yes, sir.
So after learning these object-oriented concepts, what we need to create instead of function modules? Class methods. We should use class methods to modularize the code. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So let's start creating a program using object-oriented programming or object-oriented methodologies. So in classes, we have global classes and local classes. Global classes we create in transaction code. So in ABAP, we have two types of classes. They are local classes and global classes. Global classes can be accessible by any program or any object or any function module or other class method. But local classes are only accessible
Lo- Local.
within the same
Same
program,
pro.
similar to subroutines. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So first we'll start using global classes. So what is the transaction code to create the global class?
SC24.
SC24. Okay. I'll do one thing. I'll quickly create one program, ALV report, with the help of object-oriented ABAP class methods. Okay. So what is the transaction code to create a program?
SC24.
What is the transaction code to create the program?
SC38, sir.
Okay. Which data, do we have more purchase data or sales data? Okay, we'll create one purchase order report using ALV. So any difference here when we are creating a program using object-oriented class methods? No difference in events. Okay, all events are as usual. But what is difference? Like if you are using local classes, you need to define classes and you need to create the implementation in the same program. But when we are creating global classes, what is the transaction code we have to use?
SC24.
SC24. Yes. Now let me design the selection screen. So we'll take some inputs. So in the same program, we'll cover different options. That doesn't mean that you have to use all options every time. Depends on the scenario, you have to use that feature. So I'll take company code as one input. I'm taking that as parameter. Observe carefully, this is very important program. Sometimes whenever you have a task in the project, report task in the project, so you can take it as an example. So I'll take company code as one input, that is a parameter. What are the other inputs we have? I'll take created date. Created date of the purchase order as a different input. What is the type? This is the data element or AEDAT, AEDAT, EKKO, AEDAT. I'll take date as a range or select option so that I can select multiple purchase orders which are created between start date and end date. Okay, that is my requirement. So to create the range, what is the input option we have?
Select options.
Let me define one variable, date, type EKKO hyphen. You can give EKKO hyphen AEDAT like that, or you can directly provide data element name. Okay. Now define the select option. Select options. It is very slow.
Sir, the program really understood data genuine, sir.
Sorry, what is it?
Global variable.
Sorry, I can't hear you properly. Can you repeat it, Kodanra?
Sir, in the program data GV underscore data. GV means
It's a variable, global variable.
okay, okay.
So you can use LV or GV. LV means local variable. GV means
Yes,
global variable. It's just a
yes,
naming convention. Okay.
the doubt, sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
L,
Like ZT means global table. LT means local table, right? LS means local structure. GS means global structure. Like that, you can define data objects like variables, work areas, and internal tables. Okay.
okay, sir.
Yes. So date for ZV underscore date. Okay. So let's take these two inputs. These two inputs are available for our program in the selection screen. If you want to pass any default values, you know how to pass default values to the select option. Or you want, I'll pass it. Date hyphen low equal to sy hyphen datum minus 30 days. High is current date. What are the other fields available in select option structure?
Option.
Option. What is the option?
Different.
What is the other field?
Include.
Sign
Sign.
equal to I.
Include.
This is how we can populate data to select option. If you want to pass multiple ranges, what you need to do? Again, you have to repeat it. If you want to pass multiple ranges as default value, you need to populate new values here like this. Okay, now it will add two ranges to the select option structure, two different ranges. Okay,
Okay, sir.
let's take only one range. Now for validation. So I want to validate company code. Anyway, date I cannot validate, right? Date is a value. We can validate only it is in a proper format or not. Okay, because we don't have any check table, right, for date. Now we can make sure there is some value in the date select option or not. We can do that validation. Now to validate the company code, what we need to do?
Validate from the check table.
Validate from the check table, but I am not going to write that code here in the program.
We
For
have
that,
already function mode.
but I am not going to use function modules. I am not going to use procedural
Okay, sir.
objects. I'm going to use object oriented class methods. For that, what I need? Let's create one helper class for this program. I'm going to create one class, global class for the program, zcl underscore po data report. Just a naming convention. zcl means class. It's
Class.
a class and and the remaining name as per the object. Okay. Enter the name of the class in the object type and create, and it will ask for description. Provide the description. I'm creating a global class. Here observe the options. By default, it will generate public instance, and here There is one important checkbox here, that is final. What is this final checkbox? As long as this final checkbox is selected, this class is not going to support inheritance. This is not going to be suitable for parent class. Okay.
Yes,
The
yes, sir.
objects or methods of this class cannot be accessible by its
Parent.
subclasses as long as this final checkbox is selected. If you remove this checkbox, this is available for this class is available for inheritance. So subclasses can access features of this superclass. Okay. For now we are not using inheritance. That's why I'm keeping it as final. So later also you can remove that checkbox and make it as a superclass. Now, what are the options available here? First, go to properties. By default, we are in methods. Go to class properties. This is the class description
Description. Final.
and message class. We created message classes, right? In which
Yes,
transaction
sir.
code?
Yes.
What is the transaction code?
ST.
SC91.
SC91. If you want
Yes,
to
sir.
use any of the existing message classes in the class methods, provide the message class here.
Okay.
Message class name.
Yes, sir.
So these are the message classes available. So you can use those message classes in the class methods. For now, we are not using interfaces. How to implement the interface?
By adding a class.
By adding a class, by adding interface to the class, right? Here
And yes,
in
sir.
the interface section, you can add that interface here. And when you added the interface to the class, all the methods available in the interface will be automatically available here in the methods section. Okay. Friend
Yes.
class. If there is any friend class, that will be available here as a friend. You need to define that as here to access the private attributes, right? Now go to attributes. What are the attributes?
Data objects.
Data objects which are used to
Store
exchange
the
data
data.
between different methods
Yes,
of
sir.
this class,
Yes,
right?
yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
that might be a constant, that might be a work area like structure,
Variable.
variable like structure,
Material.
or internal
Internal
table like
table.
structure. How to define attributes? For example, uh, here you can follow some naming convention. For now, I'll use like this: lv underscore bookers level. So we have instance and static attribute and constant. For instance attribute, object should be created to access this data. Object should be created. For static attributes, there is only single instance. There is no multiple instance for static attributes. There is only single instance. To access this static attributes, we need to use class name, not the object. Okay. But for instance attributes, we need to use object. We need to create the object. By using that object instance, we can access the data.
Yes,
Make
sir.
it as instance attribute and visibility, public, private, and protected.
Protected.
Associated type, the data element, whatever we have. If you need to define some work area like structures,
W.
some naming convention, I'll take ls underscore. Uh, I'm just showing you how to use attributes, okay?
Yes, sir.
EKKO. So take it as an instance attribute. Visibility is public. And here you can provide associated type. That might be a structure or table. Structure with required fields or a complete table. Okay. For now I am taking. Now what? Now I am taking complete table reference, right? Is it a
Yes.
work area like structure or internal table like structure?
Work area
What?
like
What's a work
structure.
area like structure? How to make it as internal table like structure?
By
By
creating
writing
table to or structure.
What you need to provide here to make it as internal table like structure?
Table type.
You have to provide
Uh,
table type. Okay.
yes.
Did we create any table types? F4. Search for table types.
Derivative.
Let's take any table type. Okay. Okay. Now go to methods. Provide the method name. You don't need to provide Z or Y. You can provide any name, but that should be some meaningful name. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Here it's an instance method, and you know the difference. For instance methods, we need to create object to call that method. For static methods, there is only single instance, and you don't need to create the object. We can use class reference like this. How many of you know CL demo output method? How many of you know CL demo output? What is that?
All I know, sir.
What is that CL demo output display?
It's a class.
It's a
So,
class.
class
CL demo output is
output.
a class, and display is a method. Okay.
Method.
This is
Okay.
a class. This is a
Yes, sir.
method
Method.
of that class. So this is how we are going to call method of that class. What type of method it is? Display.
It will display.
Let's go and
I
see. What type of method it is? It is an instance method or static method. Let's see that. CL demo output. Click on display. So these are all interfaces, interface methods. If you go to interfaces, how many interfaces are added to this class?
To
Two interfaces are added. That doesn't mean that we need to add interfaces to every class method. Okay.
us.
So these are all interface methods. Interface name, tilde operator, method name. That clearly says that it is a interface method. These are Methods of this class, CLDemo output class. Display. This is the method, right? What we are calling? What type of
Sir,
method it
this
is?
static method.
It's a static method. That's why we are calling that method like this. Class name, this arrow symbol, and display. If it is an instance method, we cannot call like this. You have to create object,
Wait.
and with that object reference, we need to call that method. We'll see that now. Okay.
Yes, sir.
But this is how you're going to call the static methods. Class name with the class name reference. You don't need a have a object, but here we have only single instance. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So the alternative for static methods are singleton classes. Instead of creating static methods, the alternative we have is
Singleton.
singleton. Okay. Singleton singleton is nothing but it contains only one active implementation. Okay. We
Okay,
cannot
sir.
create multiple objects.
Okay,
Okay.
sir.
When we make it as a singleton, it is very similar to static. Static method contains only single instance,
Single
right?
instances, sir.
So similarly, singleton classes contains only one active
One up.
implementation. Multiple active implementations are not possible, right?
Okay, sir.
Now let's create. I've defined my method. Method definition is completed. Now to execute this method, what are required? Inputs and outputs, right?
Um,
Similar to function module. Go to parameters. What is the input for this method?
root,
To validate the company code, what is required? Company code, right? Value. Importing parameter. It's a importing parameter. Bookers. It's
workers,
just a naming convention. Meaningful name. Provide the meaningful name. Type. What are the types we have? Import, export,
export,
changing, and
change,
returning.
running.
Import parameter to accept the input. Export parameter to return the output. Changing, you know, the combination of
Importing and
importing and
export.
exporting parameter. I told you, right? When you are creating the interface methods, we don't have export parameters. Instead of that, we have
Changing.
changing. Okay.
Okay, sir.
And returning. Returning nothing but if you want to return any value like subarc values or any other values, what is the parameter we can use?
Return.
Returning parameter. Now, this is a import parameter, importing parameter. Is it mandatory or optional? It's
Mandate.
mandatory, right? So
Yes,
I'm not
sir.
selecting optional checkbox. Provide the type
Book.
data element. My input is completed. So when we are calling this method in the program, how can we return the output? For that,
Mm.
we're going to use some. How
Is
can we return the output? Shall we use subarc or shall we return the same company code if the company code is a valid company code?
Sabars means it will check the status. So Sabars.
We'll return some subarc value or we'll return company code only
book.
if it is a
Yes,
valid
sir.
company code. Otherwise,
Workers.
exporting parameter will be blank if it is not a valid company code. Export parameter, workers. You can have multiple exporting parameters and multiple importing parameters. Depends on the requirement. Okay. Now, input parameters are defined. Input and output parameters are defined. Now click on methods. Now implement the method. How to implement the method? Double click on the method to implement it. Now we are going to create the implementation for the method. inside in between the method and end method, we are going to implement our functionality. This is the signature, method signature. To make it visible, disable, here we have hide show signature, right? These are
More
all importing and exporting parameters of this method. In between this, you can write your code. Now, what is our table? T001, right?
Yes, sir.
okay.
Into ex underscore. I'm not creating a variable because the exporting parameter is same type of this field, right? Here we are
Yes,
selecting only one field and that field is same as exporting parameter. That's why I'm directly using the exporting parameter where bookers equal to im underscore bookers. If
At the rate.
anyway, it's not required. Subarc check is not required. At the rate is not required. Why we need at the rate? Are we declaring anything using inline
no,
declarations?
no, sir.
No, right?
Yes.
Are we
Okay.
using any commas here? No, right?
No,
So at the rate is not required
okay, sir.
since we are not using inline declarations.
Declaration.
Okay.
Subarc check also not required because we are directly passing the value to exporting parameter. If value is available, it will populate with value. Otherwise, it will be blank. If you are not using exporting parameter directly, what you need to do?
Define a
Declaration of
lo local
okay.
variable or worker.
Where is
Now, since we are using inline declarations, now
execute
Okay.
escape, sir.
if sy-hyphen subarc equal to 0 and if ex
Yes.
underscore writing code is not enough, we have to return that value to exporting or changing parameters. Then only we can access that value in the calling program. Okay,
Okay, sir.
this is how we are going to implement it. Method, my validation method is completed. Activate the method. Here you can see there are many objects generated for the class. When you are activating the class, right, select all the objects which are relevant to this class only. Okay,
Okay.
Yes.
now can we access these attributes? Can we populate data to these attributes from this method, or can we read data of these class attributes in this method validate bookers? Yes, we can. Okay, you can populate the data. You can populate the data to these attributes, or you can read the data from these attributes in any of the methods available in the class. Okay, clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Now our validation method is completed to validate the input. Now let's go to the program and call the validation method. How to call the method? Is it an instance method or static method? What type of method we created? Instance method or static method?
Instance method.
So we need to create an object. How to create
Object.
the object? Data, object name, some name, lo underscore obj, type, ref, type reference to which one? Class name. Okay, we are defining the object. Before calling the method, what we need to do?
How to
Define
define the
Create
tree.
object lo underscore
OVJ?
obj. Create the object. Okay, this is how you can create the object. You can instantiate. Don't confuse between instantiation or creating the object, right? So in
So,
interviews, they might ask you how to instantiate a object. That doesn't mean that creating a object. Okay.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. What is instantiation?
Yeah. Create object nothing but instantiating the or creating the object. Okay.
Sir, repeat.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
instantiating the object nothing but creating the object. Okay.
Okay.
And the alternative for this is we have new ABAP syntax. We have new ABAP advanced syntax to create the object or to instantiate the object. Instead of declaring it and instead of creating the object separately, we have data lo underscore obj equal to new class name. This is alternative for these two statements.
Yes, sir.
Creating and defining object in the same line. New ABAP syntax. This is advanced syntax,
Yes, sir.
right? We don't need to use define data statement and create object statement. You can directly use this before calling the method.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
If that is not required actually, you can check. Now call the method. How to call the method?
What cursor?
Place the
Where you
cursor
want?
after next line. Go to pattern. Go to ABAP object patterns. Click here.
Okay, sir.
Class method. Click on class method. You can also create the object here using this option. Okay. Instance means provide the object name, class name. It will automatically create the object like this.
Okay.
obj1 and provide the class name. It will automatically create the object.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Got it.
To call the method, go to pattern, ABAP object
A web
patterns, click on
object
continue
patterns.
and click on class
Call
method.
method.
Provide the instance. Instance nothing but object name. Provide the class name and select the method. Validate company code. Validate company code. In F4 help, you can provide the input
Focus.
and return the value. How to return the value?
Create
What we
one.
need to pass here? For ex underscore bookers, it is a exporting parameter. It's going to return the value, right? So
Yes,
what we
sir.
need to pass here?
To define.
Sir,
Which one?
ఇంకా డిక్లేర్ చేయలేదు డిక్లేర్ చేయాలి
What we need to pass? What object we need to pass here? Tell me. Ex underscore
Local
bookers is a
variable.
single variable, right? Single value, right? So we need to pass a variable, right? To
Yes,
read this
sir.
value. For
వేరియబుల్
this, mm, LV underscore bookers. Okay. Observe the difference in function modules. You cannot
ఇలాంటి
use inline
డిక్లరేషన్
declarations. But here,
యూ కెన్ యూస్
so you don't need to separately define the variable, but it is not possible when you are working with function modules. In class methods, you can use inline declaration to define the work area variable internal tables. Okay. You don't need to separately create that internal table or work area.
I see.
Okay. Now validation is completed. Is that enough? Is it going to return the error? If we call this method, is it going to validate
True.
the company code? Do we need to write any additional code? So it just returns the value.
No.
This will execute the method and it will just returns the value. Depends on the value. We need to write the validation. If lv underscore bookers is initial, then that means it's not a valid company code. Message valid company code. Type E, right? But I have modularized this validation using class method. Now the same class method can be called in any number of programs to validate the company code, right?
I see.
Now in startup selection, what is our functionality to be implemented in startup section? We need to select the purchase order data, right? By using company code and created date. For that, I'm not going to write any code in the program. I'm going to write code in the class method. What are the inputs for the data selection?
Parameters.
What are the inputs for the data selection? Company code and
Date.
created date. We have two inputs here, right? Now let's go and now for the method, for the class methods, how many inputs we need to pass?
Two.
Two inputs, right?
I see.
One is a parameter
You work with
and this is a
date.
select option. Now let's see how to pass select options or how to pass how to pass select option as an input, range of data as an input to the class method. Okay.
I see.
Before that, we'll check whether this validation part is working fine or not. When you are writing a program, don't wait until you complete all the functionalities. Check once you finished initialization, is it working properly or not? Test your functionality once you implemented the validation part, is it working fine or not? Once you implemented the business logic, then test everything, right?
I see.
Don't wait until you complete everything. Test
Okay.
individual parts. That would be
I see.
easy. Okay. Now check the validation. I'll enter some company code. Execute. This is sales sign option low high. This is select option. We are not using select option in the validation. LV underscore bookers is initial. That means, or let's execute this method again. How can you go back to the previous statement? Right click, go to statement. So that you can execute again. Okay.
Okay.
Subars is 4. It's not returning any value. Exporting parameter is empty.
It's not valid actually.
Okay. Now create a method for the business logic. So it's an instance method, public, get PO data. Define the parameters. What are the parameters required for this method?
Bookers.
Company code is one parameter and it's a importing parameter.
In- సార్ ఎక్స్పోర్ట్ అని వచ్చింది.
And type is bookers. What is the other parameter?
ఎస్
Date
సార్
8.
డేట్.
Date. It's a select option, right?
ఎస్ సార్.
Select option table. I'll take like this. Mm, Date. Is it importing or exporting?
ఇంపోర్టింగ్ సార్.
Importing. What is the type we have to provide here?
టేబుల్ టైప్ కాదు.
Mm, you're right. Table type. But it's not a regular table type. It's a range table, right?
ఎస్
What are
సార్.
the fields select option structure contains? Sign,
Low, high,
లోన్ హై.
option,
high,
sign, option, low,
high.
high. So we need to define a structure with these fields and we need to create a table type
టేబుల్ టైప్.
with these fields,
ఓకే సార్.
right? But instead of that, you don't need to create any data dictionary structure here in class methods.
Okay.
I'll show you how to do that. First, let's delete this. Go to types. Go to types. You can use data dictionary structures, right? But
ఎస్ సార్.
that's not really required. You can achieve the same thing in a different way.
ఓకే సార్.
Create a type structure here in the class. For example, I'll define some name. Visibility is public. Now click on this arrow. Here, types. I'll create a type structure here
ఓకే.
like this.
లో
What are the fields? Sign,
I. See the character.
సి.
One. Between or equal.
ఎస్ సార్. లో టైప్. సి. డేటమ్.
So my type structure is completed. Low, high. In low, what you need to pass? Value, right? The
ఎస్
date
సార్.
value. In high also you need to pass the date value. That's why I'm taking that corresponding data element.
వేర్
For
డిడ్ యూ
example,
పుట్.
if the select option is for company code, I have to take bookers here in the low and high. Okay.
ఓకే సార్.
For example, if this select option is for purchase order number, I have to take EBLN here instead of data element. Remaining are same, sign and option. Okay.
ఎస్ సార్.
What are these? These are the attributes. What we defined in the attributes tab. Okay. Clear?
ఎస్ సార్.
Now create a table type. How to create a table type? Using types. Types zty underscore t
డేట్.
underscore date type standard table of ZTY underscore
Date.
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 Now what is this? ZTY underscore T underscore date.
Table
Table
type.
It is
type.
a table type. Copy this, go back. Now it is automatically created both type structure and
It's,
a table type. If you define that importing parameter with type structure, it will act as a work area. It will accept single record. If you define with the type structure, table type, it will act as a internal table like structure. Okay. If you use type structure, it's a work area. If you use corresponding table type, it's a
internal
internal
table.
table. Go to methods, go to click on the method, go to parameters, define uh, date, importing, provide the table type. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now it will accept that select option as input. This is how we can pass select option as input.
Yes,
If
sir.
you have multiple select options, define multiple type
Here to
structures with the corresponding types and create multiple table types and define, for
yes,
example, IT underscore EBELN importing parameter and provide the corresponding type structure name here. Sorry,
yes,
table
sir.
type name here, right? Here I have created only one. If you have multiple, the process is same. Only thing is you need to create separate type structure and table type for each select option. This is the same process. If you need to pass internal table data as input, you need to follow the same process. For example, if you have a internal table with some data and you need to pass the data as input to this method, what you need to do? Go to the types, create one type structure with required fields and create a table type for the type structure and use that as a importing parameter. Then it can accept internal table data as input. Okay. Or if you want to create a separate data dictionary structure, you can create it instead of types. Okay.
Yes,
Now inputs are completed. Now exporting data, exporting the data, returning the data. Now we need an exporting parameter, right? What does that exporting parameter should contain? PO data report. That might be from multiple tables, right? Combination of different table fields.
yes,
That final output data should be. Now you can create a structure with all the combination of fields, or you can create a types.
types.
For example, ZTY underscore uh, final. You can provide any name, any meaningful name. Click on here.
Yes, yes.
Now define one type structure here.
Yes,
Types.
sir. Begin off.
What are the fields we need? EBLN, type LN.
LN.
Let me copy from the table. Okay. Now company code. And we'll also take date, created date.
Listener.
If you want to take status of the purchase document, you can also take that. What is the status of
Yes,
the purchase document? So these fields are enough from header data. Okay. I'll
yes,
select
sir.
data from item level data. That is POSNR. Sorry, it is purchase data, right? EBLP. This
ELP.
purchase order data comes under which module? SD or MM?
MM.
Okay. Purchasing, all the purchasing relevant applications will comes under MM.
Material management.
Okay, sir.
Sales related comes under SD.
Say,
So I'm adding in a sequence purchase order header data, item number, company code, and what are the other details I need? I need material number, and I need quantity, MENG, and the unit, corresponding unit, and I need
Yes.
price, net price, NETPR,
P.
and the unit,
Yes.
and I'll also need material text,
Make it fix. Um, GTY final
what next?
table type
Create a table type. How to create a table type?
types standard
Types
tables.
ZTY underscore T underscore.
Yes. Final.
Just a naming convention. You can take any
Yes.
name, right? But just for a naming convention, I'm adding T so that you can easily identify it as a table type.
Standard table of GTY
ZTY
final.
underscore final. Now we need all these fields, right?
Yes, sir.
Let me copy these fields for my reference. Copy these fields and go back to the methods. Implement the method by double clicking on this. Oh, I did not create the importing parameter, right? Go to parameters, exporting, sorry, not importing. I'll take like
Expecting
this. Are we returning a single record or multiple records?
multiple
Multiple
records.
records. I'll take naming convention like this. ET underscore uh,
Zero
final exporting parameter
14 GTY to final.
final. Now go to my method and implement the method. Select. I'll use join, or you can also use for all entries as per your convenience and requirements,
Joins.
right?
Yes, sir.
EKKO. Bookers is from EKKO. Same like exporting parameter structure. Okay. Whatever the type structure we defined, right? Maintain data in the same order so that you don't need to create an additional internal table. You can directly use this exporting parameter if you maintain in the same order. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Otherwise, you need to create one more internal table and you need to loop it and you need to convert the data into this different internal table because both internal table order might be different if you use fields in a different order. Okay. So maintain in the same order so that you don't need to create a separate internal table here.
Yes, sir.
You can directly use the type structure in the select statement from ekko mm, inner join ekpo on
On
ekko
equivalent to
equal to ekpo.
EBELN, sir.
Okay. Inner join MAKT
On
On EKVO MATNO MATNO
where what we need to write bookers
Bookers
equal
equal
to
IM
attributing parameter bookers and hmm,
SO
AEDAT
AEDAT. Hmm, tell me
ADT
AEDAT.
in
Yes, because it's a select option, not an
S
internal table. Okay, it's a
SO
select option structure. We need to use in IT underscore.
ID
That's it. That's it.
into table
Into table.
table at the rate of ET final.
Since we are using at the same order and the same fields, you can directly use this exporting parameter. Always compare
system.
my exporting parameter structure and whatever the fields I am using are the same in the same order or not. Okay, as long as it is in the same order with the same fields, you can directly use it. Otherwise, use a separate internal table or work area. It
Okay,
converts
sir.
the
Okay,
data
sir.
into exporting parameter. Okay,
Okay. Okay, sir.
length must be specified explicitly when
Isn't it?
using.
For sign 1,
Default length is one only, right? But in
Sir.
object oriented class, it is not accepting without the length,
okay,
right?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I'm activating the class. That's it. If you want more methods, create more methods and attributes, whatever required. Uh, ambiguous, okay. What is this error?
Double
Please
do.
tell me. Ambiguous error, bookers
You have to
ambiguous.
mention
This
mention
company
the
code
full name.
bookers is in both tables, EKK1 EKPO.
Yes, sir.
That's why it is asking to specify from which table you
Got it.
want to check.
Yes,
What
sir.
about AEDAT? AEDAT is also
Ambiguous.
ambiguous.
Yes.
EKKO.
EKKO.
Idiot.
Activate the class and methods. Okay, like that you can keep on adding the methods. Depends on your requirement. Few methods can be public, few methods can be protected, few methods can be private.
Travel.
Okay,
Sir.
now my class is ready with the validations and business functionality. Now let me go to the let's go to the program. Do we need to create a object here to to call the class method? Do we need to
Yes,
create the
sir.
object? We created the object for the class here, right? For LV and for the same
Yes,
class.
sir.
Do we need to again create the object here?
No.
So it's a different event. We created object in
Uh,
a different event, right?
Okay, sir.
That is not accessible in other event or
Start.
selection.
Okay.
But if you keep this object here in the global section, you keep the object in the global section, now this
There
object will
is
be
none.
accessible in any event. But if you created the object in any specified event, you have to create the object again. Okay, since I
Okay,
kept
sir.
that in global declarations, so you don't need to create again. So how to call
Yes, sir.
the class method? Go to pattern.
Then object.
Hmm, where did I call this again? Okay, go to pattern, ABAP object patterns. Class name is same, but method name is different. Object name is also same. You don't need to create different object for different classes, sorry, different methods, as long as you are using the same class. Get PO data, continue. Now, what is the input you have to pass? Company code.
Vehicles.
And for this,
So
in select option.
Response for date.
yes,
What is the
sir.
internal table? Just pass it like this. Since it is a select option structure, use these brackets. Okay, that is the only
Okay,
difference.
sir.
If it is an internal table, you don't need to pass like this. But since it is a select option,
Subsection.
pass these brackets. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, final structure. Do I need to create any type structure here for this final output data? Simply, if it is a function module, what we need to do? We need to create a type structure and we need to define internal table with reference to that type structure and we need to pass that here, right? For example,
Yes.
uh, IT underscore final. Now, I'll use inline declaration to define this IT final internal table. Okay, clear? Now, I'll display the output here. If IT underscore final is not
Not
initial,
initial. Display.
then build the field catalog, call ALV function module. Okay,
Okay, sir.
clear?
Yes, sir.
For now, I'm using CL
Till
demo
demo.
static method. You guys have to build a ALV output for this.
Yes, sir.
Now let's test this program. Provide a valid company code with some data. Let me find the company code with some valid records.
VCCI.
Yeah, we'll take VCCL. VCCL and let me keep these dates as it is. Execute. Oops. What it is saying? What it is saying?
Access.
Using a
Accessing zero
zero.
object reference is not possible. Please remember this. Whenever you see this runtime error, object obj ref not assigned, or in short text, it is saying access using zero object reference is not possible. That means object is not created before calling the method. Okay, there is a issue in object creation before calling the method. Go to source code
Source.
extract. This is ST22 screen, runtime exception screen.
Yes, sir.
Go to source code extract and check where it is failing. call method
Count.
lv underscore obj. Here it is failing.
Yes,
So
sir.
it's not able to access this object creation.
Global. Yes, sir.
We'll place in this event also.
Again, you have to put one.
I'm removing from global data.
Oh,
Okay. I'll keep it
Yes,
in
sir.
individual events.
Okay, sir.
Now execute. So this is the output. Okay.
okay.
So build ALV for this report, because you know, right? It's a basic, you're all familiar with ALV reports.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If we want to build field catalog, we have to say some
Yeah, you
whatever
can
the
create
required
some
field
include
catalog.
program and inside that build the field catalog. Define now an internal table for field catalog and work area. Populate the field catalog structure and call the ALV grid display. Right?
Yes, sir.
You have a final output data here. IT underscore final. Right? Build the field catalog and display the output using ALV grid display. If you want to know what are the fields it contains, where you can find the fields that is
IT
available in
fan.
IT final.
Yes,
Since we are
sir.
using inline declaration, it should be same as this ET final. Go to the method, double click on the type structure, go to here. So these are the fields that IT underscore final is going to be
Yes,
displayed.
yes, sir.
You can build the field catalog according to this. Okay,
Okay, sir.
is everyone clear? So we created the program using class methods. So going forward, whenever you are going to create any program, create one class for that and implement all your validations and business logic inside that class methods and call those class methods in the program. Okay,
Yes,
don't
sir.
implement any code, any logic inside the program. Okay, clear?
Sir, here also we can create. We have to create separate validation, sir.
Where?
For function module, we have to create separate validation for each field, na, sir.
Here also you have to create, or if you want to include multiple fields in the each method, that is also fine, but that doesn't make any
Doesn't want.
sense.
Okay,
We
sir.
cannot modularize it like in that case, right?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Or you can make like validate, right? Create two parameters, im underscore bokers and im underscore kunar. Make
Okay.
both of them optional,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Then here check if bokers is not in shell, validate it. If im underscore kunar is not in shell, validate that.
Okay,
Return the
sir.
output. You can also
Yes,
do that,
sir.
right?
Okay, sir. By
Okay.
commenting one.
By using if statement like this.
Oh, okay, okay, sir. Okay,
Yes, sir.
I got it.
Let's assume we have one more parameter.
I am cool.
Bokers is
Finish.
not in shell. Then write the select statement to validate it. If im underscore
Kunal.
kunar is not in shell, then write the code to
And
validate this function. This Okay. In
yes,
this
sir.
case, you have to take both of them as optional. Okay,
Okay,
because
sir.
we may or may not pass both,
Both one.
right?
Yes. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
But it is always recommended to use separate method for each field validation.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
So in next class, we'll see inheritance and interfaces concept, right? How to reuse the functionality of the main class. The concept is same. Whatever I've created here, this is what I do in projects whenever I'm creating a report programs. Okay.
Okay, sir.
I'll take a helper class. Helper class, nothing but the class whatever we created. I'll call that as a helper class for the program. Okay. And I'll implement all the validations and business logic inside the class, and I'll call it here. Before that, I'll go and search, is there any class with methods suitable for my functionality? If it is suitable, I'll just call that method. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So before that, right, what we need to do is we need to make sure and we need to check with the owner who created that class, right? If we are reusing the existing class methods, and if they are going to do some changes in future, right, for the class method what they have created, our programs are going to also impacted, right? So
Yes,
that
sir.
it is always,
Yes, sir.
before using others objects, always better to check with them, is there any possible changes, future changes you guys are planning on this class methods, because I'm going to reuse this class method in my program, right?
Yes, sir.
That's about class methods, and tomorrow we'll see inheritance concept, different types of inheritance. Okay, practice creating class methods.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Okay, sir.
because in every project, everyone, like, it is always advisable to create class methods,
Yes,
especially in
sir.
S4 HANA systems. Okay,
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
don't create a function module if it is a new development. Create class method.
Yes, sir.
If it is existing function module is already available, standard or existing function knowledge available, just use it. Okay. If you need to
Yes,
design a
sir.
new functionality, use class methods. Clear?
Sir.
Yes, sir.